Thank you, Lorraine. Well, hello everyone. My name is André Martins and I am a student systems information from Federal Institute of Espírito Santo, and also I'm home-based intern from LexisNexis in Alphaville, São Paulo. And today my technical presentation is about infrastructure analysis of elementary schools in Brazil using the HPCC system. But first I have a quick tool for you. Would you consider a school with a no accessibility for students with special needs, a school with a basic infrastructure problem? Well, first things first, I would like to talk to you a little about school census. The school census is the main instrument to collect information from the Brazil schools and its basic education. The school census is actually the most important Brazilian school educational research. It's coordinated by the National Institute of Educational Studies and Research, ANID in Chile. We call it INEP. It's conducted in cooperation with the state and municipal education secretariat, along with the participation of public and private schools. The school census is held annually to serve as a fundamental tool for educational actors to understand the educational situation of the country and keep monitoring the effectiveness of public policies and allow us to create new ones. And I will talk about a little about the political situation of the educational sector in Brazil. With this in mind, it's important to mention that in April of last year, the Brazilian government and the Brazilian Ministry of Education announced a relocation of 30% from the budget originally targeted for public higher education over to public primary education. It's almost 5.8 billion reais. And despite this announcement, this year, the Ministry of Education paralyzed the investment of 2.4 billion reais that was planned for primary education programs and the construction of new schools. So I think this is an opportune moment to a better understanding of the Brazil basic education infrastructure. In order to ensure that the correct allocation of such investment. The proposal of this research is to analyze a public data set of Brazilian schools using the HPCC system in search of important information about the current infrastructure available to students between 2015 and 2018. I needed to analyze the data set model and transform it to search for relevant information, and I tried to look for statistics that can help us adopt new public policies in the future. So in the left of the slide, you can see a rural public school in my state that I talked a little about later. So the method I followed is that I downloaded the data set on the INEP website, and I did a first analysis about the infrastructure and the data that I had in hand. And then I needed to upload that to DCLOS and started to create layouts that I can adapt to different differences of the data each year. So I needed to do some transformation in the data to perform queries in an easy way. Like I needed to do a transformation of the types of the correct types of data. It would facilitate the data manipulation and query. And after performing some queries and extracting some desired results, I did extraction of the results in CSV format, and I used the Tableau desktop to generate some graphs and charts to present the data in a visual way. So the first chart, I'd like to show you about some comparison about the school types in Brazil. And the first chart is showing the total number of schools in Brazil by region. So Brazil has more than 180,000 schools around the country. And as you can see in the Northwest, we have a higher percentage of schools, 35%, followed by Southwest, 32%. But we should note that even though the Southwest has a smaller number of schools, it has the highest student concentration with 37% of the students of the country. It means almost 20 million students of the country, and we have like 51 million students enrolled around the country. So I also would like to compare the rural schools versus the urban schools. We have like 31% of schools located in rural areas against 69% of schools located in urban areas. And this is where we can see some crucial points of lack of infrastructure in schools. In this research, we can see that around 24,000 schools were closed. So let's say about lecture just show us about the administrative dependency of the schools, and then the biggest amount of schools, the 60%, is administrative by the county, against 16 of the state, and 22% are private schools, against less than 1% of federal schools. A very, very small amount of schools federal. Just change some data that I got. In this research, you can see that around 34,000 schools were closed between 2010 and 2018, and 16% of those were rural schools. And there are some factors for the closures, but the main one is the merge of small schools due to some structural problems like the ones we are going to say next. We have around 5,000 schools that do not have water supply, either to drink or washing their hands or for cook or anything you need. They just don't have water supply. We have like 4,000 schools that do not have access to electricity, allowing only classes during the period of the day. And in addition to this, I should say that we have 133,000 schools. 72% of schools do not have access to internet for the students or teachers. And one point I have to say is that this research is made in the internet, so the school have to send the data to the government, and they cannot do this in the school. They have to pass to another person or go directly in the secretariat to send the school data to the government. So we have like 7,000 schools that are not connected to a cellular network, so there's no way to dispose and produce salvage. But besides this problem, I also wanted to do an analysis about accessible schools for persons with disabilities, and we have like 56,000 schools that are accessible with ramps, railings, signalings, and other necessary infrastructures on their premises. And in addition, we have 75,000 schools that have at least a student bathroom fully adapted for persons with special needs. So, I did this map to show you guys that besides these problems, in Brazil, we have like 256,000 schools that have some kind of disability. And with that in mind, I made this map that shows how these students are scattered around the country, highlighting with the yellow dot the city which all schools are fully adapted for disabled persons. And as you can see, the biggest part of students with special needs are in the southwest of Brazil, and it's in São Paulo the biggest number. And in the northwest we have a small number, but also we can see that in Paraná, we have the biggest amount of cities that has a school. All the schools are completely adapted for persons with disabilities. So I tried to point schools that made that have a special attention to these persons, because this is the number of persons that are actually, of students that are actually enrolled. And we have so many students that are not even enrolled in a school. So there are persons that are not studying or preparing for their future because they can't go to the school, they can't go to the school and have a good infrastructure to study. So this was the point of this map, to show how it's distributed around the country. The country will have more cities if the state will have more cities prepared for these students. This is the Paraná in the south of São Paulo. Paraná has almost 20 cities totally prepared for persons with disability, some kind of disability. And the following, I have another tool for you. Which state has the biggest number of cities with schools adapted for students with special needs? So at this moment, that's it. I have to show you guys. Just to point one thing about that little school, I show it in the second slide. That school is in my state, and there's a very, very small school with only one classroom that has all the grades. It's like 4 or 3 grades for the students, and there is one woman that is the director, the teacher, the cooker, and the cleaner of the school. She just does everything. And this last year to this year, the school had like some appeared in some journals, and they have some attention to receive more a biggest amount of investment to prepare the school for more students and have more workers on that. So that was only one point about infrastructure. I would show one case of my state. That's it for today. I hope you guys like it. We have some questions.
Yeah, we've got some questions that are coming in, Andre, and so for everyone out there, we actually have a crazy number of people online today. So this is a very interesting topic. Actually, both topics are very interesting to everyone. If you take a moment, if you've got a question, please go ahead and enter it into the system. And while you guys do that, we're going to go back and take a look at our poll questions. The first one, and we'll see what the answers are. So the question was, would you consider a school with no accessibility for students with special needs, a school with basic would you consider a school with no accessibility for students with special needs, a school with basic infrastructure problems? So 63% said yes, and 36% said no. So that's a very interesting answer for us.
That's very interesting, because as you can see, there are persons that can't even study because of this kind of problem. So it's interesting. Let's see how it changed for each person.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and answer some of the questions that have come in from our audience. So here's the first question. This is very interesting research. Has it been shared with the school system or with the state?
It was not shared with the school system or state yet, because this kind of research usually needs some kind of journal or a college behind to share it and make it like official. And I was talking to a friend, a journalist friend, about we are waiting to this 2015 of this year research, the last data be like open for us, and then we can redo this research in the new data, and we can make like to send this to a newspaper or something like this, that we can highlight it and try to share it and show how it's important. So we have a way to this.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting information, Andre. All right, here's another question. With this data in hand, could you make a correlation with the quality of the teaching, or is it exclusive to the infrastructure?
There's no direct quality indicator such grades or averages. We have only the number of the students that pass and fail each year. That doesn't actually share so much about the schools because they have some problems in Brazil. But however, we are improving it in the infrastructure. Setting allows students to be focused and only in the studies and without being harmed by lack of any school infrastructure. So we don't have directly something like, okay, this guy had a B, a C, but we can see that the schools that had a better investment and the infrastructure got better, the grades also got better because it's a problem that the students just start to don't mind anymore. We can focus on those studies.
All right, we've got one last question here. Why did you give more attention to accessibility during the development of your work?
During the development, I realized that there were data about the students with disabilities enrolled in elementary school, and this data showed the type of disability of the enrolled students and whether they needed any special assistance. And at least in Brazil, accessibility is increasingly in focus. So we have like, this is because many places are not accessible to third persons, and some persons doesn't even mind because they are not the part of this group of persons. So it should provide a quality. Our Constitution says that it should provide quality basic education to all, and there are certainly many persons that should be studying that are not, or they cannot do this lack of accessibility. So in addition, there are many students with special needs who attend schools that are not accessible to them. So there is a lot of students that actually go to schools that are not prepared for them because they need to study, they want to. And like our Constitution say that the children need to be in the school. They cannot don't go. So we have less. We have more students that we can handle.
This is just very interesting, Andre. It looks like we have 2 more questions that have come in. If it's okay with you, maybe we could ask those ones.
I'm sorry. New question.
Yeah.
How will you define?
Yeah. There's one right there. How do you define having or not having internet as a part of your research?
We have like two categories that like to say schools. The actual school has access to internet. It means if the secretariat has access to a computer with internet, or if the students actually have access. So the number I said was for a school that doesn't have any access, because we can see a lot of rural schools that doesn't have access to internet. And if you think about schools that doesn't even have energy, so it's impossible. And these 2 kinds of categories that separate if the students actually have access to internet for their classes or not, or in this the teachers actually have access to prepare the classes or to find any kind of information, but it's not available for the students. So the number that I said is about the school that doesn't have access to both of them. Anyone has access to internet.
Okay. All right. And here's one last question for you. Just how did you find working with ECL and HPCC systems? I think this was a new thing for you at ECL, correct?
I started to work with CL the last year. When I started to work for LexisNexis, and it was like part of a training. I did the training, a basic of CL, and then I saw the opportunity to participate, and I started to work with CL in this first to do like a real world research in some real world data, you know. So I actually never worked with any other kind of platform, but it was a way to put my knowledge about ETL in practice, you know.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Before you go, Andre, let's take a peek at your last poll question. It's a little bit of a pop quiz for people. Make sure that they were paying attention during your presentation.
Yeah.
All right, here's the question. What state has the biggest number of cities with schools adapted for students with special needs? And it looks like it's 50-50 here. So 50% said Sao Paulo, and 50% said Paraná.
Sao Paulo has the biggest number of students with any kind of special need or disability, but Paraná has the biggest number of schools, which I have asked too. So 50 were not paying attention.
All right. It's always good to have a trick question. Keep our audience on their toes. That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah. Maybe, Trish, this could be your pop question for the platform team so they can get their free lunch. Hopefully they were paying attention.